ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is truly a lovely woman. She's beautiful inside and out. She's also unbelievably smart. She's an evolutionary biologist who spent a long time studying things most of us have never heard of. She has written a New York Times bestseller. She's a scientist and a storyteller. And she also happens to be the co-host of an extraordinary podcast with the extraordinary Brett Weinstein. I try to find out who is boss in the house, but they're so nice they say that it doesn't work like that in their house. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium Dr. Heather Hine.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here today. Here. You are here. Born in remarkable times in a remarkable country. This is the time and place where you exist, and it is your sacred duty to embrace reality and choose between abdication of your rights and duties and engagement. And you have chosen engagement. You are here. Each of you an improbable creature on an improbable planet in an improbable cosmos. We humans have the longest childhoods on the planet. And this is not happenstance, it is not luck. Dragonflies don't have childhoods, they have nothing to learn. It's all hardwired in. Mice have a little bit to learn, but not that much. Crows, though, crows and elephants and great apes like us and dolphins and wolves, we have a lot to learn. We all need to learn to be what we're going to be, humans most of all. Born utterly helpless, human babies are all potential and opportunity, so many years of opportunity ahead of them, during which to explore, imagine, create, play, experiment, make mistakes, and learn. We are improbable and marvelous and utterly human, and we are right here. To be born an American baby in much of the latter half of the 20th century was a lucky thing. The schools were good, and you could learn real things. Mothers were as likely to tell their rambunctious youngsters to go outside as anything else. Healthy children weren't medicated, and sick children were rare. Life was not perfect then, it never can be, but children had time. Time to climb trees and build hideouts and have battles with sticks and cones. Time to sit with friends and talk. Time to think and be alone with their own thoughts. Time to imagine. Imagine the most amazing things, to sometimes even go deep into those fantasies, maybe even begin to believe them. But nobody confused reality with imagination, at least not the adults. Parents understood that it was their job to provide a structure with honorable rules within which their children could explore and take risks, and parents had the full authority to do their job. Now, the children of America are once again becoming suspicious of each other on the basis of the color of their skin. The Democratic Party, which supported slavery, transformed itself into the party that brought us civil rights, has transformed itself once again into the party of racism, preaching that the color of your skin is proof of what's inside your head. Now, the children of America are learning to be scared of one another, scared of disagreement, scared of exploring both landscapes and ideas. They are locked down in the name of safety, kept from anything that might put them at risk, much the same way that a violent mental patient is restrained in a straitjacket. Our children are being treated like mental patients, and thus, many of them are becoming mental patients. Now, our children are being drugged and drugged and drugged some more, drugs to treat normal childhood variation. Speed to make the active young boy more compliant in the classroom. Anti-anxiety meds to quiet the concerns of the sensitive girl and make it far more difficult to learn how to soothe herself down the road. Children are not normally sick, but American children are, and ever more so. We are a chronically sick people, and our children are following right in our footsteps. The solution to this is not, as the blue team would have us believe, to negotiate with pharma to make the drugs cheaper. Most of what ails America's children cannot be solved with pharmaceuticals. President Biden claimed this summer that, quote, "we have finally beaten pharma after all these years." Hardly. What the Biden-Harris administration did with their Inflation Reduction Act was to lower prices for prescription drugs, okay, instead of asking why so many children and their parents and almost all Americans are on so many pharmaceuticals in the first place. It is unprecedented. We must and we can make America healthy again, starting with our children. The solution does not lie with pharmaceuticals. The solution lies in part with food, grown by real farmers, not sludge dreamed up in a lab and put together in a factory. Our children are being made sick and miserable by what they eat. Most of it isn't food, doesn't deserve the name food. It is hyper-processed, full of agrochemicals, lacking nutrition, but full of addictive potential. So many children are now diabetic or pre-diabetic, have metabolic syndrome, autism. This is new. These are new problems. Half of American children are overweight. Nearly half of them are obese. Children we're talking about. And yet Ozempic and its pharmaceutical relatives, the newest magic pills with which to treat your ills, are being given to children as young as 6 years old. Instead of medicating children to treat brand new illnesses, we need to address root causes and keep big food, big ag, and big pharma far away from our children. Corporations are being allowed to contaminate our children's bodies and get access to their brains by advertising to them. Meanwhile, the schools are indoctrinating them. Our children are being indoctrinated into a new religion, a religion called the science. The new religion called the science has no bearing on actual science, but because it comes wrapped up in a thing with a nice name and a nice package, the new religion is trusted and believed. The science teaches fantasy. Fantasy like girls can become boys and boys can become girls. The new religion called the science teaches fantasy like frosted mini-wheats are healthier than eggs. And the new religion called the science teaches fantasy like the only way to be healthy in the face of a novel pathogen is to submit to the authorities, comply with their orders, and take into yourself brand new technology that we are now well aware is neither safe nor effective. Meanwhile, the children of America are learning nearly nothing of actual science, of its wonder and expansiveness, of discovery and uncertainty and hypothesis and excitement and that tingling in the back of the brain that you get when you're onto something, but what is it? Wait a minute, I have it, eureka! The children of America are being denied their moments of discovery. I did not know, but now I do. I figured it out. Children are naturally full of wonder, asking questions, forming opinions, abandoning beliefs in the face of new information. They do not, by and large, accept that there are things that they cannot know or ask about unless they are beaten down. The human spirit is inherently inquisitive and creative. America's children need to spend time off their screens and in the dirt, growing flowers and food. America's children need to spend time with pen and ink and color and clay, learning to represent their world. America's children need to learn to spend time moving their bodies with speed and with skill, and they need to spend time observing the world around them and being encouraged to ask questions of it. Why are there so many colors of flowers? How do eyeglasses work? I wonder what it's like on Mars. And the children of America they need to have classrooms with teachers who are willing to say, I don't know. And how do we figure that out? And no, we are not going to Google it. Gardens and art and sport and actual science. These are some of what the children of America need and which precious few are getting. Instead of gardens and art and sport and actual science, our children are getting gold stars for everyone, preferred pronouns, rainbow flags, and a pathological focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The human spirit is inquisitive and creative, but the human spirit can be beaten down. The schools are doing just that, becoming centers of ideology and control. The schools are very successful at beating down the human spirit. In the new religion called the science, being advocated for by the Democrats, there is nothing new under the sun. No hope, no wonder, no excitement. It's not science, it's technocracy. Everything is already known. The experts have the answers. The experts will deliver you what you need. Processed food, a pill and a shot, and a screen with endless apps in which to waste your days. This is life for children into the 21st century America. A life lived through screens, pharma, and fake food, instead of one lived through creativity, exploration, and the fruit of the land. It is the parent's job to model and teach honesty and integrity, loyalty and kindness, determination and courage. Parenting comes with a responsibility to restrict your children, to establish and enforce honorable rules, and to gradually release those structures and those strictures as your child becomes more capable and has to take risks in the world. It is also a parent's job to provide as much opportunity as possible for their children and to teach their children that any opportunities that do not come to them or which they lose, they need to find for themselves. But parents aren't being allowed to parent. Parental rights are being taken away. The very core of humanity under attack. When rioters were allowed to take over many American cities in the summer of 2020, including in Portland, Oregon, where I then lived, it was the Black Lives Matter movement that was at the forefront. Black Lives Matter did not turn out to be about Black Lives Mattering, though. It turned out to be about enriching the founders of the movement through graft and overturning much of what Americans hold dear. Included among the principles that BLM had on its site in June of 2020 was this, quote, "We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirements," end quote. The rioting that was spearheaded by BLM was allowed by Democratic mayors and governors, encouraged even. They said it was the compassionate thing to do. The attack on the family has thus been written into the very principles of activist organizations that are adored and promoted by Democratic leaders. The attack on parental rights shows up in myriad ways, both direct and indirect. In states from Indiana to Texas to Montana, parents are losing custody of their children because they dare to protect them from the fantasy propagated by the science that boys can become girls and girls can become boys. This summer, following the Biden-Harris administration's sweeping new reforms of Title IX, which now explicitly provides protected status to the fantasy concept gender identity, California became the first state in the nation to allow schools to keep such information about children from their parents. And in Minnesota, Governor Walz signed legislation allowing the courts to take temporary emergency jurisdiction of children when gender-affirming care is not forthcoming. These are direct attacks on children, on parents, and on families. The indirect attacks, though, are no less brutal. They don't seem like attacks, but they are. A parent, usually a mother, becomes convinced that in the name of kindness and compassion and that fantasy called the science, they should abdicate responsibility for their children, hand it over to teachers and activists on social media who tell lies. Lies like, if you don't help trans your kid, he's going to kill himself. In fact, when your boy wakes up in the morning and says he's a girl, it is not time to embrace the fantasy. You did not just get a daughter. What you have is a boy who is exploring his identity, and it will pass if you let it. Because explore and imagine is what children do. These confused parents are being told that it is the loving thing to do to allow their children to be destroyed with drugs and surgery they do not need, drugs and surgery from which they can never fully return. Under the science that the Democrats have brought us, a technocracy masquerading as the Enlightenment, parents' fears are being played, convinced that if they don't follow the newest thing, the latest expert advice or drug, their child will suffer. You don't want your child to suffer, do you? You do love your child. Well, then do what we say, and everything will be fine. Do not fall for it. Do not affirm. Do not comply. This is not the loving thing to do. Family culture, traditions, and rules are what help children learn how to be. Parents having and enforcing rules about screen time or curfews, food or gaming or porn, that is them doing what they're supposed to do. But parents are being told that they must abdicate their own authority for the good of the children. This is not good for children. It is precisely the opposite. The way that children are living now, kept inside because the outdoors are dangerous, so scheduled that none of their time is their own, sedentary, socializing through technology curated by algorithms, high on processed foods and pharmaceuticals. They're effectively prisoners in their own lives. We can set them free. We must set them free. Bobby Kennedy now famously said, as he stepped down from his run for the presidency in August, we need to choose to love our kids more than we hate each other. Yes. Yes, we do. Now, I would ask that you look around you at all these beautiful and courageous Americans and with whom you stand and meet them. Say hello, offer a hand, learn something of them, their humanity, their story. Where do they come from, and how do they find themselves here? Do that, too, with people on all of your days, in the rest of your lives, and find again, I hope and I believe, how much more unites us than divides us. Remember finally that you are here to embrace what is real and what is right. You are here to seize hold of the moment and of your autonomy, your authority, and to resist any who would dispossess you of the truth. Thank you.